is your no bullshit guide to a happier life. Quick, but not necessarily easy tips to help you to squeeze every last drop of enjoyment out of your business and your life. My name is Helen Calvert. I'm a coach, a business owner and a parent, and I'm so happy to be here with you. I do swear occasionally, as the title suggests, so pop in your headphones if I'm not safe for little ears. Ready to go? Let's do this. This episode is sponsored by The Network, which is redefining business networking in the UK. If you are not aware of The Network, it was created by Regina Martin because she was fed up with how traditional networking is often so inaccessible to marginalised people. So she has created her own. There are events springing up around the country with the aim of them being inclusive for every neurotype, race, sexuality, ability. Everyone is welcome. I am one of the hosts for the events in Manchester, and my fellow hosts are an incredible group of people who are all passionate about creating real connections for real people and binning the ick of traditional networking. Each event is £20, or you can become a member of the network for £37 a month, and that will give you access to every event anywhere in the UK, plus the events online. Total bargain. The network is a community driven by the belief that networking can be more inclusive, dynamic, and accessible for everyone. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or a budding business owner, our mission is simple: to provide a supportive space where meaningful connections lead to real opportunities for all. Head to Regina's website, theconfidencehealer.com, and follow the links to networking events to find out more, or follow _Regina_Martin on Instagram, and you can find those links in the show notes for this episode. Hello, and welcome to this episode where we're going to be talking about networking when neurodivergent. How many people hate networking? How many people hate the word networking? If you go right back to the beginning of this podcast, you'll see I did an episode on networking, and I just tried to make it as simple as possible because it's just talking to people. But the word can feel so heavy, can't it? And I bet we've all got bad networking experience stories, things that just put us off or made us feel uncomfortable. And when we're neurodivergent, networking can be even more challenging, just like everything in life can be even more challenging. So my first top tip for networking, if neurodivergent, is that you need to find your tribe. Now, this is true for everyone, but you need to find your people, and sometimes they don't have to be neurodivergent people. So networking with other ND people is a great idea, great place to start. You're going to find your people, that's perfect. I would also say that networking with people from other marginalised communities is a really good shout, because anyone who has any kind of characteristics that mean that places and spaces maybe aren't as accessible or don't feel as safe to them, anybody like that is going to understand that networking is challenging, and they're going to be extra compassionate towards people who are nervous, towards people who feel maybe like they don't belong, or they just need something that's not, the standard stuffy kind of our networking worst nightmare. So try to find your people, or try to find other people who understand what it feels like to feel uncomfortable in a place or space. Because if you network with them, you're going to get a really warm welcome and people who just understand what it's like to be a little bit different from perhaps the networking norm. So that would be my first top tip. The other one, and this is true for anyone, you don't have to be neurodivergent to need these things. The other thing that I would say has always stood me in good stead is if I'm going to a networking event and I don't really know the organisers, because if you do know the organisers, they know you, that's great, you're feeling comfortable. But if you don't really know the organisers, reach out and have a chat with them. Say that you're nervous. You don't have to say why, but obviously if you can reveal that you're neurodivergent or whatever it is that's causing you anxiety, tell them that. But you don't have to tell them anything. You can just say that you're nervous. And could they keep an eye out for you? If you're likely to be late, could they be aware of that and kind of make sure you get in okay? If you like to get there early, because I'm always an early person, I'm usually the first person at things, could they, make sure they're there to welcome you in and keep an eye out for you? Could they give you a little bit of extra attention? There is nothing wrong with asking for a bit of extra attention if you are nervous. And also ask for whatever information would make you feel more comfortable. So some networking events send out a list in advance of who's going to be there, which is always fantastic. If you haven't had that, ask for it. If you're not sure about where the venue is, or not sure about the parking situation, or you know where to park but you don't know if you have to pay, or anything that's making you anxious, reach out to the organisers and ask those questions. Now, this is gold for a networking organiser, because once someone asks a question, they can see what information people need and they can hopefully improve the information they send out. So you're doing them a favour. Also, any networking organiser worth their salt wants people to feel comfortable in their space. So they are never going to mind you asking for whatever it is you need. If they can't give it to you for whatever reason, fair enough, but they are not going to mind you asking. If someone does seem to mind you asking, they clearly do not care whether you feel safe in their space, in which case it is not the networking event for you. And this is something I feel really passionately about when it comes to networking. If you feel uncomfortable in a space, that is not because you have done something wrong or because you are no good at networking. It is because you are in the wrong space. Not a bad space necessarily, not a terrible space, although there are some terrible spaces, but the wrong space for you. And there is nothing, there's nothing to be gained by keeping pushing on with something that clearly isn't your space. So don't be afraid to try a few things out. And then if you love it, go back. Or if you feel like you could learn to love it, go back. If you don't like it, tick it off and say, right, I've tried that one. It's not for me. You are not under any obligation to keep going back to a group that you do not feel comfortable in. Now, inevitably, there is going to be some masking involved in networking, even if we find our most favourite space and we feel really safe and we're amongst our people and the organisers are lovely. There's still going to be a bit of masking involved. It would be hard for there not to be. There's still going to be that feeling of being peopled out at the end of it, because if you've done a half decent job of networking, that means you've talked to people. And if you're anything like me, doesn't matter how lovely they are, by the end of it, you're exhausted. So the other thing to always remember is to build in time after a networking event to recover. Please don't think, oh, I'll be all right. I'll just whiz to that networking event and then I'll go to this other meeting and then I'll do this and then I'll do that. You are going to be exhausted. Give yourself the grace to have a bit of space for recovery after a networking event, because that will also mean that you can give it your all, knowing that you can recover later on. So be mindful of how you're planning your time when you're booking onto these different events. Now, there are also some things that we all need to do when we're networking, regardless of our brain type, in order to get the most out of it. And again, it's all these phrases, like the word networking sounds yuck. When people talk about following up, that sounds yuck. Let's think about what we're actually saying here. What we're saying is you've met all these people at a networking event. Now, some of them you might think, oh my God, I can't stand that person. They're clearly not for me, or I didn't feel safe with them. You are under no obligation to connect with them or ever speak to them again. So that's number one. Anyone you don't want to have in your space, in your social media, just ignore them. That's fine. But let's assume that you've met some really great people. There's not any obvious opportunities for business. That's not how this works. It's very rare that you go to an event and immediately make a sale, although that would be wonderful if you did. But you've met some good people. They just seem like nice people. That's all we need to know for right now. So make sure you connect with them on a social media platform. I usually find people on LinkedIn, because people who are networking tend to be LinkedIn kind of people, but it might be Facebook, it might be Instagram, it could be their TikTok. Wherever you can find them and connect with them. If you send a message saying it was great to meet you at this event, then that's a bonus, but make sure you connect with them, because you've put all this effort into going to a networking event. And if you don't then bring those people into your world, what a waste of all that effort. So make sure you connect. And then if you can message them just to say great to meet you, you don't want to send anything salesy or anything follow up, just say great to meet you, glad we've connected. That's all you need to do. But yeah, do connect with the people you meet. Go back to the same groups if you liked them. So as I say, if you don't worry about it, chalk it up to experience, forget it. But if you've been to a group that was helpful, go back when you can. Again, don't get yourself caught up in some kind of I must go every month or however often they do it. You don't have to, but go back when you can. If you found a good group, support it when you can do, and you'll gradually become a familiar face, and that will stand you in good stead. Don't be afraid to just do different things and try some stuff out. So if something feels like it might not be your space, but it's worth a go, give it a shot. Like I say, you don't owe anyone anything. So if you go along to something and you think, oh, wow, I didn't think this would be for me, but actually it was great. What a win. If you go along and it's like, yep, I was right, this isn't for me, then you don't ever have to go back again. It's okay. People come and go out of networking groups all the time. Now, I'm not suggesting you put yourself anywhere where you don't feel safe or you don't feel comfortable, but if you're just wanting to try something out, just dip your toe in. Of course, a lot of these networking groups are going to try and encourage you to come back and join or whatever they want you to do, but you don't have to. Try stuff out. It's always worth it. And there's been a number of networking events I've been to when I've never been back to that same group for whatever reason. But that first time I made useful contacts that have eventually turned into something further down the road. And that's worth remembering. These things don't tend to create opportunities straight away. Again, sometimes they do, and that's really exciting. But what usually happens is you meet some people, you bring them into your world, maybe you even get them on your mailing list. That's a huge win, but you bring them into your world some way, you connect, and you comment on some of their posts and they comment on some of yours, and maybe you see them again at a different event, or you see that they've done something and you congratulate them, and you just keep that relationship going. And if you do that, then the opportunities arise in due time. I think I've mentioned this story before, but one of the very first networking events I did as a self-employed business owner, I met tons of people that I have worked with since. They're either my clients or I'm theirs, or sometimes both. But that's been over the course of a number of years. But I met them all at that one event. So it's just about making that start. You're not trying to gather loads of hot leads at one networking event, and you haven't failed if you haven't done anything of the sort. You're just trying to meet new people and expand your audience and your world a little bit. Now, when we do feel comfortable, and we're in a space where we feel like we can be ourselves, which, as I say, there's always going to be some masking, but we know the difference, don't we, between a bit of a mask, which has to be there because we're working, and the full mask where we're just not ourselves at all. If we find those spaces where we can really be ourselves as much as possible, that's when we're going to create the best relationships, because we're us and we're going to connect with other people who are like us, and that's where the magic happens. So yes, it's really important to feel comfortable for yourself, but also it's important for your business, because the more comfortable you feel, the better you're going to be able to represent what you do, the better you're going to be able to connect with people. One of the types of networking that can feel really good if you are neurodivergent or just not really into the traditional networking style is walking networking. There's a lot of people now who offer net walking, as it's called. So you go for a nice walk. If you've got a dog, sometimes people take their dogs. So I've taken Esme along to net walking, and you walk along, nice countryside, lovely day out, fresh air, exercise, everyone's feeling good, and you make some connections as well. So that's something to look out for. I think if you just put into Eventbrite walking networking, you're bound to find some things, but it'll be on social media as well. And do feel free to reach out to me and I can recommend a couple of people who do that. So that can feel like a really nice alternative to the usual standing around in a room with a coffee situation. And finally, don't be afraid to set up your own thing. Now, if you're sort of relatively new to all this networking, you might think, good grief, Helen, it's scary enough as it is without setting up my own. But if there is something that you wish existed, you can guarantee that other people wish it existed too. And sometimes we have to create the thing that we want. Now, when I say create your own networking, again, let's keep it simple. I am not suggesting that you need to come up with a name and a logo and a website and a booking link and a social media campaign. I mean, you can if you want. But all you need to set up your own networking event is 3 or 4 people who want to do the same thing you do. That could be networking bowling, networking cinema trip. I mean, you wouldn't get that much talking done, would you? But networking in the pub, networking, walking around your local park, whatever it is you fancy, find 3 or 4 people who fancy it as well and go do it. And you take a picture of the first one and you stick it on your socials and you say, if anyone else fancies the same thing, we'll be doing it again. Let me know. And that's it. That's how it starts. You don't have to set up a whole other fancy networking business in order to set up your own networking, because it is just talking to and connecting with other people. Let's keep it simple. And sometimes you will go to a networking event and it will be hugely uncomfortable and you think, God, I'm never coming back here. But you make that one connection and maybe in years to come, you both laugh about it and say, oh God, do you remember when we were both at that terrible event? And that's sometimes how the best connections happen. So keep it simple. Do what makes you feel comfortable. If you're uncomfortable, you're in the wrong space. You are not wrong in any way. We are all capable of talking to people in the right spaces and situations. For those of us who are neurodivergent, those spaces can look very different from the traditional networking setup, but they do exist. And if you can't find what you need, gather a few people and set up what you need, because I can guarantee it will be what other people need too, and it will be really popular. So as with everything else in life, please be excessively kind to yourselves when you're networking. Build in that recovery time. Do what makes you feel comfortable. And that way, we can squeeze every last drop of enjoyment out of networking, as well as everything else in life. Speak to you next time. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to find out how to work with me or how to get your hands on a copy of my book, you can find all of those links in the info for this episode. My huge thanks to Stephanie Ward of the Spicy Brain Collective for sponsoring the whole of this season of the No Bullshit Guide to a Happier Life. You can also find out more about Steph's collective for neurodivergent business owners via the links in the episode info. See you next time.